couldn't handle. Get ready for a battle, cause you know that I was born for this. I was born for this.
Well, there's something I am 100% about, and no quibbles, that I believe strongly in, that you are not an accident. 110%. God has created you, everything about you. And I find it so amazing that if we have straight hair, we want curly hair. If we have curly hair, we want straight hair. If we have, did I say it the right way around? If we have blue eyes, we want brown eyes. If we have brown eyes, we want blue eyes. Maybe that's not you. If we have really pale skin, we want darker skin. When we have darker skin, we want more pale skin. Do you ever find that sometimes we can take some of the things that God has knitted us so and created us so uniquely, maybe for granted? Why don't you turn to somebody and say, you are not an accident. You have been called by God. You are created for such a time as this. You know, when I was a child, it was my brother who did this, so if he's listening, he might remember this. But he decided to one day, I don't know why, but to go through our house and take all the clocks. They used to have the alarm clocks, were quite nothing like you have now on your phones or anything. It was quite a contraption. He decided to take them all apart for some weird reason. And I remember sitting there on the kitchen table while he was panicking, trying to put them all back together. And some of the clocks he put back together and put them back in the bedrooms, but there was always pieces missing. And some of them still worked. Even with the pieces missing. But there was a purpose for the piece to be there. And some of them didn't work at all. And I wonder if you look at a clock today, maybe in the portrait of your own life, we need all them pieces to make that clock work. Sometimes we might get caught up with just looking at the numbers or just looking at the hands and think they've got a really important part. I wish I was the hand. I wish I was the hour. I wish I was the second. I wish I was the minute. That's what everybody watches. Maybe I wish I was one of the numbers. I can get away with 1 and 2, but I wish I was the 12 o'clock. That is the important one. Maybe you wish you were just the face, the colourful, creative face, or the ornament that it's all in. But if we take the back off, there are springs, batteries, there are all kinds of things, there are a wind-up one, there are little bolts, and it's very intricate, all the wheels and things that turn together to make it work. But we don't think about what's inside, we don't think what's at the back, we just see up front what's in front of us. And maybe today all you see is up front is what in front of you. Maybe all you see is the hands and the numbers of the clock face. We are all needed to function together. And I believe passionately that God has created each one of us with a purpose. You know, I teach young children music and the piano, and it's right, some people do have exceptional talent on the music. It's amazing. You turn a page over and they start and they just get it. And you think, wow, they're only maybe 5 and they're just picking it up just like that. But they still need to practice at that level to get to the next page, to get to the next book, to learn the scales, to go on for their exams. They don't just suddenly at 5 go, I've got a talent, bring on grade 1. They need to practice. There might be a skill inside them and something creative within the music side, but they still need to put that into practice. There is other children that maybe that isn't one of their top talents, but they still achieve just the same result. Why is that? because they put into practice what they know. Sometimes I find in life that God's created us with different creativity and different purposes and skills that are just sat in this room and are online today. But if you're just sat there like the talents, just burying them away and expecting to get a good investment, it won't come. But if you get what the bit that God's given you, maybe you'll just feel like I'm only a washer. I'm only a washer inside that clock. Not really a great job I've got, but invest that. Be the shiniest, the fantastic washer. Be that spring. Be the one that you are not going to break down on your duty of call. You are going to keep on giving the best to God. I can assure you 100% as you invest what God's given you, as you give him everything with a clear heart and clean hands, he will add more to you. Mozart wasn't just like that on the piano. He had to practice. And we know that we say, wow, for the music that he did at such a young age. But he wasn't just suddenly born and went, ooh. He had to practice. And what God's given you as gifts and talents and purposes and callings over each our life, it won't just wake up one morning and go, dung, I need to go to Save Families. I need to go to Moses. It's not like that. It's a calling in your heart. It's taking that first step. And God will meet you. And you suddenly feel there's something that you were born for. Well, we've been going through a series in Nehemiah. And just a quick recap, Nehemiah was a cupbearer to the king. He was completely heartbroken when his brother come and told him that the Babylonians, should I say, had taken all his homeland and they'd just been in captivity and terrible. And now they're letting them slowly go back to Jerusalem after they've been conquered. And so now his homeland's all back in Jerusalem, but doing nothing about it. And so where he's expecting to hear good news, what's happening, they said it's a really sham. And if it's a sham on the community, it's a sham on God, because not everyone's not looking going, wow, look at the God they serve. They're going, ha, seeing the God that they serve down the road. So Nehemiah breaks his heart. He breaks his heart and he repents before God. He kneels and he prays and he earnestly and fast before God, and then he stands up and takes action. And we heard last week that even that he put all his time and effort to get in there with a purpose to say someone's got to do something. It might as well be me. Even that he went with a vision and a purpose to try to do his best. And God definitely used him in a mighty way. He began the good work. In chapter 2:18, he started and he began. It wasn't all straightforward. We heard last week that the enemies started to come. When the work goes down, the opposition goes up. The three enemies that were just the pain, the three wise monkeys, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Gershom, they did everything they could to distract Nehemiah. If the enemy can't destroy you, he will do everything he can to distract you. So today we're going to just look very briefly at shutting the door on your distractions. Shutting the door on your distractions. And we're going to take it from Nehemiah chapter 6, and we'll start off with verse 1. Sanballat, Tobiah, Gershom the Arab, and the rest of our enemies found out that I'd finished rebuilding the wall. This is Nehemiah, and had no gaps remained. Wow, done a really good job. Though we'd not set up the doors and the gates, so Sanballat and Gershom, the enemies, sent a message asking me to meet them at one of the villages in the plain of Ono. It was none of their business. They weren't part of the working team. They had nothing to do with what was going on, but they still felt they could give it all this. They still felt that let's distract him. Tip number 10, I've got to say, if your enemies are asking you to meet you in a village called Oh No, The minute you read that, oh no, I just would take that as a message. I certainly would not be going to oh no. And Nehemiah had an opportunity. Nehemiah could have thought, this is a time. This is a time to convert my critics. I mean, they can see what marvelous work I've done. This is a time to expand my influence and tell them how I've done it. This could be a time to build my own brand and start making money and start making a bit of a business for myself. But sometimes what we call an opportunity, God often calls a distraction. The enemy tries to divert us, take our focus off the purpose, to distract you from what you need to do. The enemies keep coming in and they keep asking for meetings for Nehemiah. Come on, we'll take you out for a meal. And no, all expenses paid. Oh, come on, we'll take you down to Costa. Just you and me. Let's just share our hearts together. We're a bit concerned about you. And what does Nehemiah do? What do you do in the face of distractions? What do you do when people and critics are coming your way? How do you respond? What sentence do you use? What kind of thoughts can you build up? What kind of paragraph can you just throw out there? He did one word. Do you know what it is? No. Come on, Nehemiah. You must be tired. Come on, come with us. We want to talk to you. No. He didn't say maybe. Sometimes in diplomacy, I've often said, oh, maybe, when I really mean no. Let me encourage you, never say maybe when you mean no. Nehemiah made it very clear. A complete sentence. No. Even Jesus said no at some times. Even there was times when he turned the crowds away. Could you imagine it? People may be coming on stretchers to be healed and have walked for miles and seeking a touch from Jesus. And people have been healed all over. And you're that person, maybe with leprosy or walking, or maybe you were deaf and you're needing healing from whatever that is. And Jesus goes, okay, guys, home you go. It's enough for today. Sometimes Jesus said no, but it wasn't because he didn't care. Sometimes he said no to the crowds to say yes to his Father. If you're available to everyone, eventually you'll have nothing to give to anyone. Just because he could do it, just because he could go and meet the enemies, just because he could explain where his heart was at and they've got it all wrong, doesn't mean that he should do it. 4 times the enemies kept coming. And 4 times he gave them the same response. Come on, stop building. Come on, let's talk. No. Nehemiah 6, verses 5 to 6 says, the 5th time, Sanballat, the servant, so now they're not getting any very good, so Sanballat sends a servant. He comes with an open letter in his hands, and this is what it said. There is a rumor. I've heard it being said. You never know what they're saying down the road. There's a rumor amongst the surrounding nations, and Gershom, which is a joke, he's the other enemy, tells me it's true. Oh, well, it must be true then, mustn't it? That you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you're building the wall. According to his reports, you plan to be king. I heard a rumor. You never guess what they've been saying. Don't let the whispers or opinions of people distract you from what God is calling you to do. You will never do big things if you are distracted by small-minded people. Years ago, when Jonathan and I moved from Scotland and we came and we had the privilege of taking over and to be pastoring the church here, we had an old building, as some of you were with us then, and up Skinner Street. And the first 2 years were a very, very difficult 2 years. Personally, pastoral, we're talking. We had rumours upon rumours. You couldn't keep up with all the rumours. We had letters upon letters. We even got to one point that I started ripping letters up without even reading them. They were that bad. We had even letters and emails from ministers around saying how proud and arrogant we were for buying this building. These are ministers. We were the leprosy couple for about 2 years. That's my nickname for it. Nobody wanted to touch it because of the rumors that is going wrong. Have you heard the rumors, what Kath and Jonathan are doing? And Jonathan was woke up one night by the Holy Spirit, and God told him to read Nehemiah. And he believed so passionately that he knew what to do. He was going to remain focused. He wasn't going to go to any of the meetings. He wasn't going to start advocating what he had and hadn't done, because there were clear rumors. And nothing was the truth at all. And he said, Kath, keep focused and let's keep building the wall. Yes, we sit here today, and yes, the miracles have unfolded time and time again. But I can tell you, I found that difficult. When we have a prayer together and Kath, keep building, yes, okay, I'm there. But then I heard a rumor. You never guess this, you never guess that, have you heard that what they're doing now? And I'm going, Jonathan, just let me. I'll be the diplomatic one. I won't go in as blunt as you. Let me go in, because I really want to say my little piece. Please, let me go. No, Kath, no. Just keep building. Let's keep focused. It was exhausting and it was tiring. But we are better people for it today. We have learnt more today. And we can worship together today because of some spiritual things that needed to be broken. Maybe you're in a season that you just need to start brushing off some of them rumors. Don't start negotiation. Don't start talking. Don't start reasoning with rumors. We all know we're not perfect, but we're not talking about not being perfect. We're talking about your purpose and your calling. So what did Nehemiah do? Instead of letting the opposition discourage him, he got more determined. Nehemiah 6:9 says, and they're just trying to intimidate us. Nehemiah knew what they were doing. And sometimes when you know what your enemy's doing, it's still hard. Imagine that they are just intimidating us, and imagine that they could discourage us and stop the work. So it says, Nehemiah says, so I continued the work with even greater determination. He kept working, a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other. He knew that there was lots of talk about they were going to attack, so he just got prepared but didn't stop working. Don't let the eternal success do damage to your heart. Don't let external success do damage to your heart. Don't let what people are saying or start going on, or you're thinking, maybe I could take liberty in doing this because after all, I have worked hard for it. Don't let that damage your pure and clean heart. So later, in Nehemiah 6:10, later I went to Shema and said, and it just comes down, it says, let us together inside the temple of God and bolt the doors, because your enemies are going to come tonight to kill us. Let's go in the temple, because they'll never kill us in the temple. Let's go together, bolt the doors, and we'll be safe there. But Nehemiah knew that was abusive of his role. Yes, of course, he could do it, but it wasn't right. Only certain people were allowed into the temple, and he wasn't one of them. So he replied, Nehemiah said, should someone in my position run from danger? Should someone in my position enter the temple to save his life? No, I won't do it. I realized that God had not spoken to him, but that he'd uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse and discredit me. Don't fall to their level. A few weeks ago, Jonathan was talking about Abigail. Remember saying about don't come down to the level? That was really powerful. Don't come down to their level. Keep high. Keep overlooking and let God deal with what he needs to deal with. Nehemiah says, I'm not going to hide. I know why I'm here. I won't take special privileges. I refuse to lead from an entitled heart. I'm not entitled to go and do this. My purpose is to build the wall. My purpose is to do the calling of what he's called me to do, to inspire the people. And then my purpose is to go back to serve the king. Nehemiah didn't come to make a name. He came to build a wall. And Nehemiah 6:3 says, finally, Nehemiah actually responds. He sends a message to all his critics. And this is the reply. When they were all coming and saying messages, I sent messages to them saying, I'm not even going. I'm doing a great work. I'm not even going to come down. Why should I stop the work and leave it to come down to you? He didn't even get off the ladder. He's not even going to come down. He was so focused and determined to keep on with what he's been called to do. Are you so focused and determined today to keep on with what God's called you to do? Not to come down off the ladder, not to reason with critics, not to have to explain why and what you're doing, because you know where you are, how you're doing it for such a time as this. He wasn't trying to impress. God's not called me to be important. I wasn't trying to be popular. Nehemiah was just living out his purpose. Through this good work to continue so you can see a great work. Don't listen to your enemies. Don't come down and be bothered by their opinion. You better not even know him. Don't listen. Don't back off. Don't take your eyes off the prize. The target in what you're doing, keep that the target. Today, I'm not sure what season you're going through, but I know that Nehemiah wasn't called to build a wall for the rest of his life. I am sure he's been through lots of seasons that he'd been faithful and invested them talents, what God's given him, and God knew that that was on his heart because he wanted his nation to be glowing to glorify God. He would never reap from that because he was going to go back to serve the king. Nehemiah wasn't a builder that was always going to be a builder. It was a one-off seasonal thing that God had called him to do. Yet he had in his heart a passion to see God fulfilled in his time. I believe God's given you gifts and abilities and so many things in your life and heart. But it does not mean that it will be the same thing that you're going to be doing all the rest of your life. They'll be experienced in different ways for different seasons. Maybe today, you're just a mother. Maybe you're just feeling like you want to do something more with your life. Maybe as much as you love your kids, you're just thinking, oh, there's so much more I believe God's calling me to do. I want to encourage you today, the season that you're going through is a season to pour everything in. It's a season to see the seed grown and to pray over your children and to do the best and to give them the best. You're doing a great work. And this season will not last forever. And as you learn through this season, you will go to different seasons. Maybe today you're trying to get out of debt. And maybe you're just, it's slow, but you're getting there, but you just keep hearing whispers. Whispers saying, oh, you'd get out of it a lot quicker if you weren't tithing. Get out of it a lot quicker if you weren't giving to that jelly walk. Don't listen to the enemy. You will get there. You're doing a great work. You will get there. Remember what we said in Galatians last week, that at the right time you will reap a harvest, but that key bit at the end says, if you don't give up. Keep on keeping on. Maybe today you're wanting to live more of a pure life. Maybe there's things in your life that's not pure, and you feel like it's one step forward and two back. Don't give up. Just because you fall down doesn't mean you are knocked out. So in this season, I want to encourage you to keep on with your calling, to keep on the great work that God's called you to do. Nehemiah 6:14, we kept saying Nehemiah did 12 prayers for the book of Nehemiah, and I hope you get time to read it maybe through the summer and just let the Holy Spirit speak to you. But he prays and he says, remember, O God, all the evil things that Tobiah and Sanballat have done. And remember Noadiah, the prophet, and all the prophets like her. They should have known better, who tried to intimidate me. So on the 2nd of October, the wall was finished. Just 52 days after we begun the good work. This is an absolute crazy story. 52 days, he beat all odds. 52 days, he says, if only somebody's going to do something. I'm not a builder, I don't know, I'm just a bit of an ordinary person. But if no one's going to rise up, I'm going to give it a go. And God says, I'm waiting for you. Keep focused, you will learn through this. Keep focused, and I'm going to input into you so many things you really do not realize. And I'll take you from strength, from season to season, and you'll keep on going up a new step. But remember, every new level, there's a new devil. There's a new thing to tackle. But as you keep rising, as you keep going higher, you will go higher and you will be touching heaven. You'll be getting closer to God. I often think, God, there's so many amazing miracles through the Bible. Talking donkeys. Food that falls from heaven. A burning bush. Parting of the Red Sea. I mean, these are just not kind of like your everyday take away my headache, God, are they? These are, wow, out there. But for Nehemiah, when he was fulfilling his purpose, God did not rain the bricks from heaven. The angels were not all stood there in droves, ready with the trowel. Come on, we're ready. We're with you, Nehemiah. Come on, we're ready. We're going to work hard for you. He didn't have that kind of miracle. Nehemiah's miracle was to push on and to keep on, that God would be honored and glorified. He was an ordinary guy whose heart was broken for his community. He sat down and cried, repented before God. He prayed and fasted. He stood up and acted. And all through it, he pushed back on his critics with no. The last verse he says in 16, when our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. Who was glorified? God. Who started it? God. Who empowered it? The greater the opposition against you, the greater the opportunity that God will fight for you. It's time to begin a good work. But can I leave you with one thought? And people often say this to me. Oh, Cath, I never did this. I never did that. I believe God was going to do this. Listen, you will never finish what you don't start. God's waiting for you to put a step forward, and he promises to meet you. And when he meets you, put another step forward, and he'll meet you. He will lead you, he will guide you. He doesn't have to use you. He can part the Red Sea, he can make the donkeys talk. But he chooses for you to have the privilege, for you to remember why you've been born, that you're created for such a time as this, that he's put treasures in your life for you use to glorify him.